Ladies and gentlemen, we are live and back at it again for the Dirt Sheet debates here at the Wrestling for Life Network, the show where we just dive into the dirt sheets. We talk a little wrestling, we debate some of the hot topics that are going on in the wrestling world today. It's going to be a fun one. Myself and these two pretty faces have a lot on our mind, a lot to dive into. Make sure you get in your chat, the chat, or your chat. Either way, I don't care. Strap in, strap on. It's going to be a fun one, folks. And let us know what's on your mind. Let's go. Ding, ding, ding. We are live and back at it again, folks. Like I said, we are the Wrestling for Life Network. This is the Dirt Sheet debate. We're looking forward to this one tonight as we dive into the dirt sheets and go over some of the hot topics. Of course, there's a lot to talk about, a lot to get into. It's going to be a fun one here tonight. But I will remind everybody out there, I am Mr. Evernight KJ White, the Iron Man of YouTube. That's the chapeau that runs the show. That is Big Nick.
Ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, children of all ages, the Wrestling for Life Network proudly brings to you its tag team trios champions of the world. The chapeau that runs the show, Ringsider Anthony, the Every Night Delight, Mr. KJ White, and I am Big Nick. There we go.
There we go. There we go. How are you, Anthony?
I am good. I feel like I'm ready to debate a little bit about these hot topics going on in WWE, AEW, TNA, whatever we're talking about today in the wrestling world. So I'm excited.
Yeah, and there's going to be definitely a lot to get into. I will remind everyone out there is your questions, anything on your wrestling mind, anything you guys want to talk about, anything that you have conjured up in your head. We are all ears as we will add that to the agenda as best we can. But it is going to be a fun one here. We are busy all weekend long, all week long, as always. So be a part of the fun, be a part of the show. We are this close to 6K subscribers. So I hope everyone out there is happy, healthy, and safe. Make sure you hit subscribe. Make sure you share the link. Make sure you're a part of all these fun shows. But I think we're going to start this show off tonight. Last night, big night in the wrestling world. NXT aired at the same time as AEW Dynamite. And, of course, the online community had a lot to say about it, boys. I'm not sure where you want to begin this conversation, but I am all ears.
I was going to ask Anthony what he thought, because obviously you and I were here on stream and everything like that. Anthony was popping in the chat and everything. So how did you feel? What did you like from either show? Who do you think went out tonight? What are your takeaways from it?
For NXT, it started off red hot, especially with Jada Parker versus Lola Vice. I thought that was an excellent match. I didn't feel like at any point NXT kind of went downhill, like took a downward trend. I think they kind of kept the pace. You had the surprises with some of the ECW originals coming out. Rhino was a big surprise. TNA, ECW, WWE, love all of it. But I think they really delivered. And you start the show off with the women. You end the show off with the women with the 10-person tag team match. I really enjoy NXT. I gave it, I think, an 8. When it came to AEW, the first match, which I think was somewhat of an Extreme Rules match, I thought it was great. And then Jericho came out after, and I was like, I'm not interested. And then I just really didn't watch after that. It was like, from what I can glance at, it was more of promo after promo, which is not AEW. Expecting competition on the same night, I was expecting AEW to kind of come out with match after match after match, but it was 2 matches and then like 35 to 40 minutes of promo time, and I was like, this is not AEW. So I was kind of disappointed there. And that's kind of when I tuned out, because it literally was promo segment after promo segment with no matches in between. If I had to give the upper hand to anybody last night, it was definitely NXT. They came out swinging and they ended hitting a home run, in my opinion.
Fair enough.
No, all strong points. I mean, again, I think you and I watched this live, Nick, so we had kind of rolling through it, trying to grab both situations or both shows at the same time. And I do feel that NXT did steal a little more of my attention, especially through that middle portion. I felt like they were just, long segments that, they didn't have all that stuff. I mean, Ospreay comes out the end. You have Will Hobbs return. But again, I don't know if they really were trying, but there's certain things on the show that made you feel like they were trying.
Well, yeah, there was a little bit, and I think it's for every good thing that they've started to do, they kind of still have a few negative spots, like Anthony mentioned, Jericho, etc. Like, I really liked what they've done so far with Bobby Lashley, the Hurt Syndicate. I know we've got the new name of the Death Riders and everything, but I'm kind of still digging Moxley's whole group and everything. So there is some good in AEW, and I like that. At least they didn't instantly over respond and overbook and everything like that and tried to stay their course with this. But there is still, you get those segments of Jericho, you get those long drawn out segments of just promo followed by promo followed by promo. And again, this is where the best wrestle, but we don't see a lot of wrestling anymore.
No, 100%. I mean, again, it's kind of been their staple. What we hear from the fans, what we hear in the dirt sheets all the time is that AEW is the wrestling show, WWE the entertainment show. But I feel like over time now it's starting to change. Like, maybe AEW is trying to lean more into their stories and less into just another match, another match, another match. That's kind of what it feels like. Like, I mean, I don't feel like it's doing the same thing. It's not what it's known for. It's not what it's, what its MO has been for the first 3-4 years of we're the best wrestling. That's changed a little.
Yeah, no.
I wonder where like Tony Khan's head is, because I feel like the previous times, and I'm not talking about the time they went somewhat head to head about 2 weeks ago, but in previous years when they've went head to head, it was kind of like Tony Khan was out there. He was tweeting about it. He was all engaged in it. It was an all-out warfare the last 2 times. So I'm talking about Title Tuesday, which he moved from 8 to 9. And then last night, where it wasn't a lot of promotion. It wasn't a lot of Tony Khan saying this is WWE versus AEW. He kind of focused on AEW. He did that the same thing with Title Tuesday a couple of weeks ago. And I feel like pushing it back to 9 o'clock was his way of not conceding, but just saying maybe I should start focusing on my product instead of trying to go after the competition.
Which I think is a completely smart idea. And I know even last night I was praising them on that they stayed the course that we've all wanted them to do. They didn't really try and drag into, this knuckle drag out fight and everything. And they just, you get punched in the face every time you stand up. Eventually you're going to keep sitting here and you're just going to stay sitting down. So they stayed their course. Now, granted, could them focusing on their stories drive certain fans that are diehards that want what AEW's been the past 3-4 years and everything? Could it drive those fans away? Can they get the growing pains out of the way to actually get to where they can have stories and long-term angles and everything versus we've just got to be car crash wrestling?
And I wonder how much the fans have kind of been preconditioned to, we saw them last night. Adam Cole, Malachi's in the ring. They're pretty quiet. The main event, they're pretty quiet. Now, for the fans at home or the fans on the internet that I bump into and they're going, that show was amazing. I always ask, why is the in-house crowd, even if it's a small crowd, why are they not losing their minds? We've seen TNA shows with small crowds, GCW shows with small crowds, and those people are losing their goddamn mind. And what is it? Is it just because, like, we need the table spots? We need Jericho to fall off a ladder? Like, is that what all we're waiting for from the hardcore audience that's still buying tickets?
That almost seems like that's could what it be of that, now it's just built so much on the high spots, on that car crash wrestling. I mean, I have the ratings up and everything like that if we want to talk about the ratings for each show and everything. And I even pulled up all the way going from the trend of when NXT went to CW and all of that. And it has been a good one for AEW.
Well, let's go. I'm in. I'm curious. Keep it coming, folks.
I'll start with NXT. So when they started September 24th, going right before where they went to CW, 620. Go to CW, 895, 874, 639, 702, 588. And last night's was 619. Rey Mysterio dropping a dime.
Okay, so they bounced back from 588. 588 is pretty low for them as of late. So I'm a little surprised.
They haven't been in sub 6 since August 6th. So yeah, they've been hovering right around that mid to 600 range.
Okay.
And then going from AEW at around the same time. So the night after, before NXT went to CW, so September 25th, which was Grand Slam 702, 680, which was their 5th anniversary show. 329 is when they went toe-to-toe with NXT and moved the hour back, like Anthony brought about. And then 633, 637, 628, and last night 523.
Oh, okay. So a substantial win for the record followers.
Yeah, and a big drop off from even the week before. So you're literally almost 100,000 separate from last week. And
did you count the Big Bang Theory lead-in?
I didn't break it down like the first ins and everything like that. I haven't gone that far into it.
Right. It always seems that the fans are sitting down and not standing up and cheering. Not sure how loud it is in the arena, but it comes off so quiet on TV. Part of that could be the production. Part of it could be the honing it down. I mean, I would be concerned because we're kind of consistently in that 600 range. It seems like on a night where fans had to choose between one show or the other, one show kind of maintained, the other show took a pretty substantial hit. It's interesting.
And it should be the night where AEW actually takes the win, because this is their mainstay night. This is where they've been, and it really should have been AEW's night to take the ratings victory.
Yeah.
But then it's still, when you look at NXT, they've had the debut show with CM Punk and everything for the CW. They had Randy Orton the following week. They have this week, that's ECW. So they have had a fair bit of special shows.
Fair.
Yes and no, but I mean, that's the people on their roster. They have, and again, right now we're actually comparing Dynamite's flagship to WWE's third tier show. I mean, that to me alone, I mean, so you brought in a guy that an AEW fan said was a cancer. We don't need him. You use him on NXT, as you're premiering on CW. And they got CM Punk. I thought CM Punk wasn't a draw. You can't have it both ways.
No, and I get that, and 100%. And it's even Michael actually brings up, shout out, I think Michael might be a new name, but appreciate all the work you guys put in. Definitely keep me informed, especially since Dish dropped the channel NXT is on. Like, that's the thing, though, too, is I find interesting. No one, respectfully, show of hands, who was actively watching the CW or even knew what channel to find it on, how to find it, what have you, until you knew NXT was going there. So it's a big.
I would say on and off.
I was waiting for it.
On and off. I mean, I think the last official show I watched on there was Superman and Lois, and I think they're in their final season. Okay. But yeah, on and off. I would say on and off. I knew where the CW was.
Fair enough. So we should have all gone to Anthony and said, I can't find this. What subscription package do I need to purchase to watch this? But that's a thing that plays into this. Like TBS is on millions upon millions of homes. Everybody knows how to find it. Christ, I've not lived in New York for over a decade and can still tell you what channel TBS was on when I was growing up and everything. It's just that ingrained type of shit. CW's not so much with that. Then USA was a bit more towards that TBS style. So it's a shift too of you've got a new home, everybody's got to find them. But WWE's also put a big spotlight. You're seeing them on NASCAR cars and everything now. You're seeing them on every bit of advertising for the network.
Is this now where the actual race or the actual war exists? And it kind of did back when we had the Wednesday Night Wars. But is this not where it lands? Which to me, for the company that keeps beating the drama of we are better than this other company, we just need time. It feels like the real war is NXT versus AEW, not main roster WWE versus AEW.
Oh yeah, it's very clearly, I think it's been that for quite a bit. And right now I believe NXT's up 3-0. We're 3-0 here with this. Anytime that they've gone toe to toe. So it's much more that there's never been a comparison outside of Chris Jericho saying, I think in a couple years we'll be able to outdo Raw. No one's comparing Raw ratings to Dynamite. The only thing that they compare them that way is if they dropped, how many people they might have dropped, what have you, from week to week. You don't want to put $1 million, $1.5 million, $2 million versus 600,000, 500,000.
No. And that's a tough shout all the way around. And I mean, at the end of the day, I mean, if this is where they're at and this is their lane, what I will say is this: watching both shows at the same time, you notice the production difference. You notice the overall presentation differences between the two shows. And again, I mean, if Moxley's your big star right now, I mean, when you're having technically an under women's match, your superstar should be able to be drawing more attention. I think the big issue for me watching the two shows, I mean, it's young, it's vibrant, it's moving. NXT is, that is. And then on the other, you know, when you got Jericho in a sloppy anything goes match and it goes forever, yeah, I mean, NXT feels a little more exciting in that moment. Then when you go into promo segment after promo segment after promo segment, which I'm not saying they can't have them. It's just ironic that they are doing them at this level and that they're not producing the show or structuring the show with a little more pacing to it, where that's what NXT felt like last night. It felt strong, it felt young, it felt vibrant, it felt energized. And I think AEW feels a little stale.
I wonder if they're in like a reboot kind of stage where, and I think both of you guys touched on it earlier about them maybe focusing on storylines, because I feel like if you focus on storylines a little bit more, you can create bigger stars. And I think that's what AEW is lacking right now, is lacking the bigger name stars. And if you have all these people in your company, you can take one or two or three out and kind of build them up to be that big star. If you look at WWE, you got the Bloodline going on. You got Liv Morgan in the Judgment Day. You got Nia Jax on SmackDown. You got the tag team titles with Motor City Machine Guns and Jade Cargill and Bianca Belair. You got big stars in each division, you know, somewhat on the main roster. Same in NXT, they're big up and comer stars. But then in AEW, you're supposed to be focusing the women's division around Mercedes Moné, but she's not, you know, kind of delivering of her name value, right? And then you got guys like Adam Page and Adam Cole and MJF, but MJF is not the MJF he was 2 years ago. So it's like it's not given the same star power that you have in WWE that you know, that exists in AEW.
I think at this point, AEW's kind of burned through all of its good faith with a lot of its not hardcore fans. I'll put it that way. Of like NXT is still bringing people in. It still is, like KJ said, it still feels vibrant. It's still moving at a clip. It's still kind of a living, breathing thing. You have Jordan Grace randomly pop up. You have Zarya, and Zangief there show up and everything. You have Stephanie Vancour, Julia, all of these kind of new names fluxing in, but it feels like AEW's just burned out a lot of its not hardcore fans. Like, you have a lot of people, we see it in the chat. I know we've all kind of been there at one point of like, I used to really watch AEW. Nah, not so much anymore. Like, it's really burnt out a lot of people. Like, you can't now, like Anthony even said when we were starting it off, of he got to Chris Jericho and then turned off the show, never came back to it. Because, you know, that's kind of the death knell of, I've been here before, I've seen this song and dance, and you shoo people away before you can bring them at least back into the door.
Yeah, and I do wonder how much people have, like, you know, we saw the double storyline go nowhere. We see other storylines that don't make sense. You see Darby become number one contender and lose it.
The elite angle means nothing anymore.
The elite angle, all of that for nothing. No payoff, no big moment. CM Punk, no payoff, no big.
You showed the footage for nothing. For nothing. You'll do nothing.
Right. So I wonder how much that has caused people to step away. All right, I like the show, but it's not making any sense.
Yeah, you can go from 1 week and then 2 weeks later something entirely different's going on here. Because that's the thing, is you can rattle off the Devil storyline, the Elite storyline. Christ, the BCC to an extent was pretty much a failure to launch. You had Regal already hightailing it shortly out of there. It's just been hit and miss. It's been miss and miss and miss after each time they step up to bat. Meanwhile, NXT hits home runs, at least doubles, you know, triples, all of that.
Mm-hmm. And I have friends that they were at one point diehard AEW fans. If you want to talk about like tribalists, they were like WWE sucks, AEW is great. The last time AEW was here in Atlanta, I called up my friend. I'm like, we going? And he was like, no, I haven't watched in like 6 months. I
Yep.
was like, whoa, I was kind of shocked. I didn't even know that. Like, we talk about everything else, but we never talked about AEW. And he was like, no, I haven't watched in 6 months. And I was like, well, I'll go alone. But like, he was like a huge AEW fan. So it's been like a massive drop off.
100%. And I mean, I think I like what you touched on as far as is this, and I'll put this out to the chat as well. You guys can chime in amongst yourselves, but like a reboot time, which is fine. Like, I mean, you're 5 years in, great time to reassess. My only fear with the reboot is if, you take the Nintendo game out, blow in it, for the old folk, blow in it and put it back in, it's still the same game. And that's what it feels like. If Jericho's going to be prominent on your show, if Orange Cassidy, if the Elite have stepped away now, that might be a blessing. But if you're just recycling the same people and maybe the wrong people, we're not getting anywhere. We're not evolving as a company.
Well, and I'm hoping, keyword hoping, fingers crossed, all of that we're starting to flush some of those people out. And yes, we need to flush the shit out of. Now you've got Bobby Lashley, and he's treated very seriously. Like, probably one of the best things out of Dynamite this week was everything with the Hurt Syndicate. You've got John Moxley now that's trying to do his best Stone Cold Steve Austin badass impression again and everything. But he's at least getting treated seriously. You have MJF, at least we know how great he can be. I know he hasn't been so great as of late. Granted, I'm still wondering who the phone call was. We're going to be probably getting Kenny Omega back soon. We have Ospreay, you have Ricochet. So you've got a bit of rounds in the chamber now. You've got the pieces on the board. You just got to put them together right.
Right. This is a very interesting comment from Dip Butt Kiss. It doesn't make sense now, but in 2027, you got to realize this is long-term storytelling at its best. I don't know if that's tongue-in-cheek or facetious at all, but my God, that cannot be the plan.
I think it's more nose and straw, but that's besides the point here.
Nose and straw maybe might be the interesting way to put it. And I mean, I think there's little missteps here that AEW can tweak and work on. Keep things in-house. Stop leaking things to guys like Meltzer. Promote what you stand for. Like, for so long we hear just enjoy the wrestling. Well, okay, but both sides of the war have to enjoy wrestling to make this work.
Right.
I've begged AEW fans for a long time. Just be honest about the product. And again, some fans out there are like, this is amazing, no matter what happens. But if you're being honest about, this doesn't make sense or that doesn't make sense, it might help. I mean, we just saw, Kenny Omega. I mean, I'm not sure if his fight with Gabe was shoot or not yet. I haven't fully.
Yeah, I saw clips and it's debatable. Like, it's actually if that's the way AEW is gonna go, this could be potentially a boom-ish period for AEW if you can use Kenny and he comes back serious. You have Moxley and he's serious. You have Lashley, he's serious. And you can blur that line. Sorry.
But the issue is, Nick, he's not doing it AEW. He's helping New Japan boom.
Yeah.
Right? Like, that's great for New Japan. But if that was him and a video of him and Danny Garcia or the Elite.
Stop. No one's going to take that the same way if it was Gabe Kidd. You kind of have to. You have to use that partnership. Because Danny Garcia, Jungle Boy, Jackass, any of them come up. The only person that you could take seriously right now coming up to Kenny in there would be Hangman, who's another one that we haven't talked about, or we kind of swerve another guy that they can build around and have been building around. But, Lashley, Moxley, though Okada are probably like the only guys in AEW that they have that could really step toe to toe with Omega and it actually comes off serious. I like it. I'm hoping it's an angle and everything between Gabe Kidd and Kenny, but I think it's fucking great.
I thought it was really cool. It looked legitimate, and what made me think of it being legitimate was nobody was around. Like, it started with nobody there, so they get into it.
But they started with there was press there.
I felt like it was just really interesting. But these are the type of angles you need to see in AEW. And I think if Kenny's been on the shelf, we should have no idea when he's coming back. We shouldn't know that he's going to fight in New Japan. Like, we shouldn't know any of this. He should arrive like a fucking hero. Like, That's your opportunity for a huge, huge pop. Yet he's out there telling the world, I'm going to be a dynasty.
But where do you slot him in? I fully agree with you that he should be an AEW talent first and a New Japan talent second, especially right now with the state that AEW's in. But where do you slot him in if he comes in right now? His buddies just hightailed it, the ones that he should be getting vengeance with and everything like that, because they've kicked him out of the elite. That he's been gone so long. That whole storyline came, went, and has died, and is starting a new storyline before he even came back. So that's out the fucking window. You'd put him in there with Moxley. I don't know about that. You go to, what is he going to get? Skewers and staples and syringes and everything.
Right
with
on the
Hangman
gate.
Swerve. So that's the thing, is you've got to set the landscape before you can drop Kenny in, I feel.
Yeah, but you're like, okay, that's fine. But if you know he's coming back, you start setting the landscape. But you can't have him out in public. Like, imagine, we haven't seen Punk in 2 months, but the next thing we hear about Punk is he's going to be doing Noah in January. Like, it's a weird
thing.
Heat
him up, though. You heat him up a little bit, maybe.
Not for your company, though. And you take away the
but you have the connection. You can bring into Forbidden Door, depending on when you're going to run it and everything. I'm just spitballing here of bringing the Kenny Gabe Kidd thing into AEW, what have you.
But that's hurting. That's done nothing but hurt AEW. Like, the Forbidden Door thing has been one of the worst things for AEW in 2 years.
I'm just trying to find a way to bring this man in here that, like, right now, like, this is it's an overgrown lawn is AEW. You got to sit there and you got to get the fucking rusted out car towed away and everything. You got to trim the bushes. You got to get rid of, the litter box that's out there. You got to find the missing tire. You got to clean this shit up a whole hell of a lot before you slide Kenny in there, I feel.
It's like Nick is trying to troubleshoot but can't get to the resolution.
Not at all. Not at all.
Restart it.
Did you pull it out and blow on it?
Right? Oh, shit. And pause. But yeah, no, I mean, I think that's an issue is the first thing out of Kenny's mouth about wrestling should be AEW related. He's an EVP. He's part of that company. And I don't think it's helping the domestic product to continue to petition that kind of thing. I think there needs to be more surprises. I think guys like Meltzer need to shut up more. He's hurting the business more than he's helping the business. And it's just a weird kind of, it's this vibe of the inmates are running the asylum.
Yeah, but I feel like the reins are hopefully starting to tighten a little bit with that, which, by the way, for anyone who didn't know, Meltzer believed that Backlash was going to do Tokyo Dome and then didn't believe it and then realized it was fake. But I think they're pulling the reins within AEW on, certain people. I think clearly Chris Jericho and his bod and everything, very much still have a say in all of that. You can't call it a dad bod. It's not a mom bod. It's not whatever the fuck. But yeah, it's
a Brian Griffin bod.
It's a fucking Peter Griffin bod is what it is. But no, I think those are going away. The Bucks are taking a pause for the cause. So like I said, I think the proverbial turds in the punch bowl are getting flushed out here.
Maybe. But they got to find a way to make us more excited about the actual product. Jericho Ishii is not doing it for anybody. Right. This one's a really interesting comment. AW is 9% less homes according to Meltzer. Adding that to the AW total, it would go from 523 to 570, still 49K less. So they still lose, but Meltzer's not like they weren't saying this when they were getting a mill. When the demo got it.
What's the same fucking group, the same fan base and everything, the same journalists, even if you want to call them that are the same ones of why do casual fans care about the ratings and all of this, and why are we splitting hairs and all of this when it comes to everything, are the same ones that pull out shit like that. Well, it's available in 9% less homes. Dave, I know your fucking face is already up Tony's ass, but you don't need to sit there and play face off with him because be all the way up there with
you don't
him.
need to use the tongue.
Calm down.
You don't need to use the tongue while kissing the butt.
Right.
And we've already debated this in, the CM Punk trial. If you haven't watched it, it's on the channel. But we debated the ratings, and we debated, me and Nick, about when the ratings started to fall. The ratings started to fall was when CM Punk got let go, because they were consistently over 1 million when CM Punk was there. Then he got let go, and they have consistently dropped since then. We know where the downfall was.
But to me, it's just the constant still splitting and excuses and everything. Like,
right.
Take it on the fucking chin and move on. Quit coming up with pause, hot two on that thing, whatever the fuck you gotta do. But yeah,
we know Nick's philosophy when he's doing his taxes.
Exactly, 100%. But
take it on the chin.
Facts. That's why I got the things, my guy. But yeah, of just it's in 9% less homes. The World Series was on, the debate was on, the fucking news was on. People, there was a good book, and everyone decided they really needed to read Catcher in the Rye again and shit like that. Like, what the fuck are we doing out here? It was a rainy day, it was a snowy day, it was a sunny day. Every day is a fucking reason for AEW to have an excuse as to why they're not better than where they are or where they think they are.
Right.
Absolutely.
Valid. The last thing I'll throw out there about this whole situation, again, it feels like NXT's on the rise. We just got a whole bunch. Now, and again, they're leaning on their women. We talked about it last night. The poor women's division in AEW doesn't look strong, doesn't look good, isn't being presented well. You can brag about all the names that you sign, but if you don't use them, it don't really matter. Ultimately now, this to me, and I think this is where this all started, was this ends up being more of the battle, more of the realistic fun thing to debate, because AEW hasn't figured its shit out. We thought it was going to keep climbing, and maybe it would challenge one of the bigger shows, but at the end of the day, it doesn't look like it's going to be the case. But last thing was back to you with your comment about Kenny. I think this is part of the ratings issue, is like if Ospreay had come in and just been a world beater, caught on fire, and became world champion. Simple. Then Kenny's coming back to a champion, Ospreay. Now it feels better, but now we play all these ego games, and everybody's got to, you can't hurt anyone's feelings. So you got mid-carders in the wrong spot. You got Mercedes taking up TV time, even though you got better superstars sitting in the back eating catering. That to me ends up being I feel like NXT's pushing their big people. Like Zarya gets the win last night. That wouldn't have happened in AEW because it might have hurt someone else's feelings. And that's what I think is killing AEW is the in stuff, the egos, the splitting the audience, debating about, Cody, whether it was CM Punk. If you're pushing the wrong people won't get excited about your product at the end of the day.
And I think the difference between NXT and AEW, like at this very moment, is NXT knows how to pivot, right? The men's division in NXT is not the strongest at this point. So how did they fix that? They pivoted to the women's division, and you have all these stars. You got some showing up from TNA. You got Jordan Grace, who's on her way to WWE in January, and you pivot to the women's division, where the women's division is being featured more. The women are getting TV time, but what you see in AEW is kind of the same shift. You're seeing the Jericho, you're seeing the Mercedes, you're seeing, Moxley. Like there's not a shift of like kind of moving the talent around. Is you seeing the same things every week. There was one point, like I felt like almost all of 2023, the first person you saw on Dynamite that opened the show was Orange Cassidy. Like there's nothing changing. It's always kind of the same moving cycle.
I was gonna say we're about to talk about that with Orange Cassidy and everything, but I agree with everything you guys both just said. I'm just hoping that they're starting to change that way and everything, that they're starting to go a bit more in the opposite direction a little bit. Like Kenny, it's nice what you pitched out there with Ospreay and Kenny fighting for the title and everything. That wasn't the landscape at that point, and there was no way that they could have easily moved that around without just we just fucking blow up everything. And I think they're at least starting to try and get to it.
When you first brought Ospreay in, you had him run right after the title?
when you had, but you couldn't have brought Kenny right back into that because that would have been Kenny was out because of Kenny was tied into the elite angle at that point.
Yeah, but you now have a 6-month run of Osprey being the face of the company.
But then you have to ignore the elite storyline with Kenny.
Yeah, but everyone else did, and so did the company that
right.
did it.
And I get that now. We realize that now.
No, but even at that point,
they weren't there.
You got to remember, he wasn't involved in the elite storyline other than getting punched in the stomach one time where he came out of injury because it was in Winnipeg. Like, so
he got fired from the elite and everything. So he had his friends.
So did Hangman Page though, Nick. How's that storyline going? Oh, Hangman just
he fucked off and went all the way to story. Trust me, I'm agreeing. Like I said, I agree with you. I'm hoping that they're hitting the reset button, but they can't do that clear, just flush everything out. Just do the WCW Vince Russo, Eric Bischoff, New Blood, old money shit and everything like that. You can't do that. So we've got to work through it. Growing pains.
Right. Fair enough. Let's shift gears a little and then we'll come back to AEW because we can beat this one to death. But one of the things a lot of people are talking about right now, and I love to hear from the chat on this one, Solo pins Roman. A lot of people were mad. Oh, you buried Roman. The good old IWC forgetting what we're watching. But yeah, Roman loses to Solo. Has Solo surpassed Roman as far as I'm the tribal chief? This is my table. You can come and get it, but I got the Ula Fala. I got the young gang. What are you going to do about it? Is he the guy now?
First of all, how do you bury Roman Reigns? That doesn't even make sense. Buried in Roman Reigns should never be in the. If you want to say buried in Roman Reigns in the sentence, we can talk about the big dog character, but at this point, he is not buried. But I don't know who said in the chat. I feel like it might have been Boston a couple of streams ago, but I think Boston said that Solo is the tribal chief because he has and I don't know how to pronounce it. Ula. He technically is the tribal chief, right? I think I was shocked when Solo pinned Roman at Crown Jewel, but I also believe it was the right call because if you're making Solo as this big monstrous guy, you have to have him pin the former tribal chief some way, some shape or form. And if we look at the character development since WrestleMania, Solo has been the top guy, technically kind of running SmackDown in a way. Solo has been running SmackDown, and the character development, each and every week you can see it. Like he is comfortable. He is comfortable being who he is now. I feel like it was the right call. I was shocked because I really thought it was going to be Jay taking the pin and then Roman and Jay kind of going at it because maybe Jay and Roman are not on the same terms. But yeah, I think that was perfect at Crown Jewel. Roman taking the pin. He's not invincible anymore. He doesn't have the group behind him technically. When he was not being pinned, it was because he had the group behind him. He had Jimmy, he had Jay, he had Sami Zayn. When that all started to fizzle out, then Roman took a pin, and he took a pin by his cousin. And then later on at WrestleMania, he took a pin by Cody Rhodes and lost the title. Now he's still not invincible, so he can take another pin by Solo Sikoa. It's perfect in my opinion.
The Bloodline storyline has been a masterclass in writing, of wrestling, creative storytelling, all of that. It's been one of the best storylines of the past decade, I will say.
Yeah.
And 100% this has played out exactly how it was supposed to be. Granted, Roman's still clearly the tribal chief. He's the fucking head of the fucking table. My guy, Netflix is calling asking for Roman Reigns, CM Punk, and Cody Rhodes. They ain't calling and asking for Solo Sikoa, respectfully. Solo's out there running the game with Tonga Loa that they don't even want to have him tag teaming with his actual tag team partner because you never know. You might botch something Saudi and they might not let us off the plane and everything. But
that or Jacob's awesome.
Well, that too, but still, when you have the actual tag team versus, you could have had Gorillas of Destiny versus the Usos, and we're like, nah, homie, we done seen you. You stay on the sidelines.
I feel bad for Tonga. We got to give some love. I mean, I think it's Jacob. Jacob had to be in that match, and the other two were.
He could have just sat there and been menacing as fuck and just been the one that pops in and costs it. He could just, he did in that match was just, I love you, Solo.
Nah,
I love you, Rolo.
Well, what about the stories now? I mean, we've talked a lot about it, but I think I saw it in the chat. It killed me today of like, oh, the newest member they finally signed. We knew Lance was coming. We just didn't know it would be like a year later.
Right.
He's actually been signed. It's just that he was injured, and it basically Cat got out of the bag and everything because he got caught. He was in a picture at an NXT event and had an NXT hoodie on and everything, and then pretty much, Cat got out of the bag. I guess he's going to NXT. Same thing with Hikuleo, which I think is more of just, we're going to put you here, so when you show up there, no one's going to know it, because you're not going to initially say, well, Hikuleo is going to SmackDown and Lance Anawahi's going to Raw and shit like that. No, you're going to let them show up when they want to show up, when they can show up. I guess Lance has been sidelined with an injury for a minute, so we don't know when he'll show up. Yeah.
Does this mean, so my question becomes, are we introducing new characters into this war before we get to War Games? Is this going to be a 5-on-5 or what? How does this work? Do we wait till War Games? Like, I'm curious how we slot these new members in. Zilla's
a whole other thing. I don't think he's actually gotten signed yet. I actually watched a thing before we went live here of him talking about where he combined the spike from his dad Umaga and the Roman Reigns Superman punch. So the man hits a Superman spike and all of that. But I don't know when you bring them in, how you bring them in, because I still think we build to Sammy, Jimmy, Jay, and Roman OG, Triple OG Bloodline versus Jacob, Solo, Tama, and Tonga at War Games. And then by the time we get to WrestleMania, we get Roman versus Dwayne. So that might be in between Survivor Series and WrestleMania, might be where when we get a Lance shows up, a Hikuleo shows up here, because like Anthony was saying, this played out perfectly, this match between the Bloodline and the new Bloodline and all of that. And Solo was the only person that should have gotten the win, should have gotten the pin, and especially to get it over Roman clean and everything. Well, clean, and Jacob helped him. But that's the way you do this. That's the way that it makes sense of Solo's trying to usurp Roman and everything like that. So it makes sense that he gets the win, establishes himself. Of the fact that we're even having this discussion is because of the way that they presented Solo, and that he's, gotten wins on Roman, that he's made it now more of a viable thing than it's just, you're the little brother, you're the little cousin.
Yeah.
I think what scares me, and I have faith in Triple H that he'll do it justice, because he has already done it in having the Tonga Tawa, I can't even pronounce their names at this point, but having them come in and join the Bloodline, right? So I think my fear is having these other additional people come in, like Lance and Zilla, and it's not being done right. But I'm confident in Triple H that it will be done right. But at this point, the storyline is so tight. Like, and what I mean by tight, meaning like is written tightly, that it's like I don't want to see extra people right now outside of The Rock. Like right now, you somewhat are trying to get the Bloodline, the OG Bloodline together. You got Sammy and the family meeting tomorrow on SmackDown, right? The story is written so good right now. Like, I just want it to stay here for a couple of more months or until WrestleMania, and then we get the additions. Because there's 9 innings in baseball, and I don't know much about baseball, and we're only somewhat in 4.5, 5. So we still got some time to add people. I just don't want it to be right now.
Yeah, I kind of agree with that to an extent, because we still haven't even seen how the Bloodline's going to come back together. We're waiting for Paul to come back. Sammy and Roman and the Usos still haven't really got all on the same page. Anthony's sentiment here is that it doesn't make sense to have Sammy back. He's not family. He's an honorary use. So we got to remember that. Like, there is a reason for it.
So we've seen the pictures to where it was all 4 of them. They went out and went to Blockbuster, rented a couple movies, had a sleepover, ordered some pizzas. We've seen it. It.
And it makes perfect sense. He was one of the biggest parts of the Bloodline storyline. So for anybody out there that thinks it doesn't make sense to have Sammy involved, Sammy really makes sense being involved in all this. And they addressed that, I thought, very well on Monday. Even Jimmy still got kind of a chip on his shoulder. But no, he's family. He's Sammy Uso, and it worked. It got over, at least with that crowd.
It makes way more sense than it does remember when people thought it was going to be Cody involved and it was going to be Kevin Owens and Randy Orton involved. People thought Brock Lesnar was going to get pulled in by Paul Heyman and be in this. Like, are you shitting me? But so Brock Lesnar makes more sense in this than Sami Zayn. Come on now.
Right.
But do we get the wise man sooner rather than later? Could we see him tomorrow night?
Tomorrow would be nice. Next week is the latest for me. I wanted him last night. A lot of fans did say, "Oh, we should have had Paul."
But it would have been like putting the cart before the horse a wee bit.
That's where you don't break it. I mean, that's where we were just talking about the other company. If they have a special moment or a special event, they'll kind of like fuck their storylines and just be like, "We got to do this thing." Where Paul's like, "I'd love to be at NXT, but I'm on the bench. Like, I can't show up on NXT. I'm in a story where I'm out." So you don't just show up at NXT and then forget that, oh yeah, by the way, aren't you not supposed to be here? So I do like that they kept the consistency, as much as I would have loved the nostalgia of that. I think it is, I think Paul pulls it all back together, and I still think Rock's pulling the strings. I've seen several people bring up the Rock's creating his own bloodline. There's a third table.
No, this is the table. Remember when Dwayne showed up and you had Solo and everything walking through the crowd, and he's like, "Don't worry, that's all part of the plan." We've said this, you especially from the get-go here, of Dwayne's the puppet master here.
Right. People talking about Solo, Jacob turning on Solo, not for a long time. We're not there yet. And they built it up for that reason.
How would you bring Heyman back? Does he still come back disheveled, groveling, pleading with Roman of, "I'm so glad you found me, you brought me in," or does he come back just slick as a fucking gold tooth and everything like that, adjusting the tie of, "Ladies and gentlemen, my name is Paul Heyman"?
I think if I was doing it, I think I said this the other day when we were chatting, of like, if all four guys on Friday are in the ring and they're arguing, like Jimmy and Jay are arguing, and Sammy's yelling at Roman, and Roman's yelling at Jimmy, and they're just yelling. And next thing you hear Paul do that, and it just stops everybody, and Paul comes, trotting on out the way Paul does. I think it's going to get a huge pop. Then he walks in the ring and kind of chastises them of like, "Do you know who you are?" kind of bullshit. I think I like that idea. Now, I'm just talking off the top of my head, but I think it would be really fun to see them all fighting, and it's Paul that has to grab them by the throat and be the wise man.
Oh no, that's perfect. I mean, I've said it for the longest time, of the wise man's the one that weaves the webs between all of them and everything.
Mm-hmm.
And it'd be amazing to see him come out there and have the Remember the Titans kind of moment of, "You blitz all night" type of shit. Of the second you hear them, they're all fighting in the ring, and you just hear, "Ladies and gentlemen," everybody's gonna fall the fuck out. 100%.
Right, and
he sits there and has to run them through of individually, remember who you are, of why we're the goddamn bloodline and everything. And that he's the perfect one to do it because he's the masterclass orator. Pause.
So we have that, right? We have that type of segment where he comes out and introduces, kind of brings everybody back together. But what if we don't have that segment until after War Games? So hypothetically, tomorrow, Sami Zayn and the OG Bloodline is somewhat a cohesive unit. We charge towards Survivor Series, and they actually lose War Games. The OG Bloodline loses War Games. At this point, they have nowhere else to turn. We go to the next episode of Raw or SmackDown, whatever the Bloodline wants to show up, and they're hashing it out in the middle of the ring. And then we hear Paul Heyman. And then Paul Heyman comes out to remind them who they are, to set up the next potential match between OG Bloodline and Bloodline 2.0. I'm just spitballing, not saying that's going to happen.
You have me until I'm like, where does that next match land? Because to me, those Survivor Series War Games is a fucking crescendo upon crescendos for this.
And that's
storyline.
true. And usually it's the end all be all. right?
Yeah.
Usually, but we can tell that this is not going to be the
Oh,
end all
But
be all.
for this chapter,
one whole thing?
imagine though, this is the end of the chapter and everything like that. And you have Heyman that's doing the intro for the fucking Bloodline and everything like that after they've all been pulled together, and you're seeing Bloodline 2.0 versus the Bloodline OG and everything. Generals gathered in their masses. That shit just instantly gives you fucking goosebumps and everything. So that's, to me, you capitalize the most on that, of having Heyman involved, and he's the one that pulls them together. Because at this point, I don't know how you pull them together and they feel like a solidified unit without that.
Yeah, I'm kind of leaning that way as well. And I mean, my concern would be, and I mean, I still am, like, so if Paul gets everybody on the same page, and then the OG Bloodline whoops the shit out of the Bloodline 2.0, where does this story go after Survivor Series? I almost kind of agree with Anthony on the idea of, what if the Young Bucks, like the young Samoans, I got to clarify.
Young Bucks, the Samoan Bucks.
Right? If they almost need to win, if the Rock storyline makes sense, or is it they lose and then the Rock appears disappointed, and that's where we go from there? It's really good.
He still had the Dwayne moment to remember. He's
1, 2, 3. You're
so,
all back.
Right. We don't even know if Dwayne versus Roman's gonna be the first thing. Excuse me. We could get Dwayne versus Cody at some point.
Right. So I mean, again, very compelling, very interesting to see where it's going to play out. Friday should be very interesting for that reason. As we know, Roman's going to be in the building. They invited Sammy to be there. So let's hold on tight. But transitioning pretty quick to now, this is an interesting one. And I see Sean, he's leaving AEW. He put out a message today saying, I'm not leaving AEW. Though it was a weird moment. It was almost like, this is probably going to be the last time I wrestle Adam Cole, bro. That's what it felt like to me. It felt like a goodbye. It felt somber. He addressed it. But here's my question. And again, should Malachi Black go on social media and address this shit? Or should it just be left alone? Should it be something that needs addressed? Like, we've talked about it, like Ricochet. We never heard shit from Ricochet. Ricochet signs with AEW, and now he can tell every fan on Twitter to go shag their hat. I mean, it's kind of funny.
I feel like in certain situations, I know Nick was looking at me like, I'm gonna let you speak first. But I feel like in certain situations that some things need to be addressed, right? We just saw last week, the week before last, and I think this might be the first time I've mentioned TNA on stream tonight. But we saw a couple of weeks ago where AJ Styles had to address the rumors and speculation that it was WWE and the big management that wouldn't allow him to go to the TNA Hall of Fame, and it was actually his decision because he wants to be placed in the Hall of Fame after he's done actively wrestling, right? So I think there's a time and place for everything, right? And I think here, I think that was that time and place as well. I know a lot of people speculate on contracts and when contracts are going up, and last night they hugged it out and, oh my God, he's leaving AEW. I think that was a clear, concise message from him that I'm not leaving AEW at this time, at this very moment. I'm sticking with my company. I think it was a perfect opportunity. There's some instances where you don't need to respond. And to KJ's point, Ricochet coming out responding to everybody and their mama at this point, like it's not.
Let's not forget that, the fiance is very much followed suit a little bit with that.
Right.
The Irvine. Like, that's the thing, is I think now at this point you have so many people that have done it the wrong way that at times when someone does it the right way, it just becomes it gets lumped into the bullshit pile, because I didn't think it was big enough of a thing, honestly, to even address. When we were watching the show, I don't think we ever really were like, oh, well, that's it, folks. Pack it up. That must be the end of Malachi Black. Like, last I knew, he re-signed or signed in 2022 and has still 5 years on his contract. Like, he signed a long contract.
Rumor is his contract's almost up at the end of 24, 25. Now, that was just rumor, and I agree with you. I thought he had signed for. Now, a lot of the contracts are 3. Did he sign for 5? And is it 5 from his first one or 5? Like, I don't know, man.
Does he have an opt-out clause? Does he have a CM Punk clause? Have you were seen in the footage helping out CM Punk? So you got, 2 years knocked off your sentence here. But yeah, I don't think anything with Malachi doing the video or anything was out of line, out of character, or anything like that. I think that's really kind of more of how he is, and he's one of those guys that seems to normally any sort of rumor bullshit. Let me just shut this down real fast before the Twitter machine gets going here. Go ahead.
And that's the same thing that happened last year with Edge. Like, it was all these rumors that WWE didn't want him, all these other things, and then he made that video and was like, I chose not to resign. I wanted to go somewhere else. And then we saw him, at Russell Dream, I think it was last year. So like I said, I think it's a time and place to respond to fans. I also believe it's how you do it. And I think the way that Edge has done it, the way that Malachi Black done it, and the way that AJ Styles did it a couple of weeks ago, I think it was all fair and just.
Well, sorry, did you have something?
Go ahead. Shoot.
I was going to ask since I don't think we've really fully talked about it, of how do we all feel about like Ricochet and co. Very much of big fans of commenting about to I like eggs 375 on their in posts and everything like that, of going at them a little bit. I think that's a little too much.
Well, I think we've seen a lot of it. We've seen Jericho, we've seen Dax. I feel like the WWE does a much better job of controlling their stars. And if there is a message that goes out there, generally they know what's going out there, or the odd occasion somebody says something and they're like, can you take that one down? But for the most part, like you said, AJ addressed something. I had no issue with Malachi coming out and addressing it. But you can't address all the rumors. I mean, the rumors are part of the fun, right? Like, but it's almost like this insecure feeling of like, if they think I'm leaving, I'm not going to get booked, or I don't know what it is. We've seen him. I think he's had 3 singles matches in recent memory, and he's lost all 3 of them. It just feels like, is he just trying to keep the peace until his contract's up? I don't think they're going to push him. I don't think they're going to use his faction. Buddy lost last week to Cole. He loses this week to Cole. I know Brody next week. I don't know. What are we doing here?
He's trying to not rock the boat, because we saw Ray Fenix, and you rock the boat, and then all of a sudden we add up this injury time and everything, and all of a sudden you get added miles onto your sentence and everything. So he's probably just trying to keep the peace of, let me just skate on out of here. I'll go be with Punk. I'll go be with Hunter. I'll go be with my wife and everything like that. Right. Let me just slide on out of here.
And that might be the case, because I didn't even think about that as well. Him trying to basically save face, because it's like the Ricky Starks thing. It was like, as soon as they showed him somewhat at WrestleMania fan cam, like, we haven't seen that man since. So that definitely could be the case. Did not cross my mind at all.
Well, yeah, and I mean, the one story I had read, that there's apparently like an option year for AEW and Tony Khan when it comes to Malachi Black. Like, it was 4 years plus an option, and Tony might exercise that option just to stop him from going elsewhere and being another guy that they're like, oh, dude, you could have done so much more. So I mean, very interesting. I think, we don't see it a lot with professional athletes, that they jump on Twitter. Like, if someone's like, Allen, you had a shit game, the Bills are going nowhere, he doesn't jump on Twitter like, yeah, fucking Bills fan, 3332. Fuck you. Like,
I don't know. Kevin Durant might do that.
Kevin Durant might.
Him and all his burners might do that. But yeah, no, 100%. Well, and it's the weird line that there is that's different with wrestling versus professional sports and all of that. But yeah, this could be very much of, let me just play nice so I can skeet on out of here.
Yeah. Do you think part of the reason the crowd was being quiet, and then maybe this ties back to my thought earlier, like this comment here, Adam Cole for me is not entertaining and Black is way better. So there's a big collection of us, and I know watching Wednesdays with the chat, a lot of people love Malachi, but he's going to lose. So nobody's really excited for the match, because the guy that everyone's kind of behind, always, he's not going to get this win. And these might be like the Malachi Blacks of the world, the Ricky Starks of the world, might need some pushing to build interest.
Gee, who would have thought about that, huh?
Right?
Who would have thunk it? If you push them, they will come. It's fucking Field of Dreams out here. If you build it, they will come. No fucking shit. Sure. No, I'm not saying that to you. I'm saying that to one
No, I know. I get it.
and
Right?
everything. Just Jesus Christ. Yeah. And that's why I think we're going to get, there's still going to be a mass exodus, I think, at some point. Of Malachi's obviously been rumored. We know Ricky Starks is all good as gone. We have Rusev, Miro, who wants out, Wardlow's, off in the abyss and everything like that. So I'm waiting for the mass exodus out.
I mean, does anybody know when Deonna Purrazzo's contract expires? I know she just signed it, but I need something because, like, you come from a place where you were at the top. You left technically at the top, even though you took straight losses for 6 months and still, though, delivered in every match. And then you came in, you had your feud with Tony Storm, and then you were left to Collision and Rampage, and now really just Rampage. And it's like, these are your stars. These are your up and coming stars. Deonna Purrazzo, to make your company, have a name. Deonna Purrazzo, Taya Valkyrie, like all of these guys and gals, and they're not being built correctly to make your company known. And I don't know. It sickens me just a little bit when these people have star potential and they're not being used as star potential. And that's just not in AEW. There was a time in WWE when it was under VKM where you knew there were stars that had potential and were not being used. And it seems like the roles have kind of reversed.
Yeah.
Yeah, that poor Baron Corbin, they could have made millions with him. He could have main evented WrestleManias. I'm starting to think Tony Khan is going to start holding performers for ransom money. He's just going to hold them for bail. You got to release them out on bond and shit.
One last question before we check out some questions from the fans and take off for the night. But my question, because you just touched on it, Bobby Lashley comes in, the Hurt Business comes in. Again, the old adage of, Triple H, WWE dropped the ball, and now look at AEW picking up this ball and running with it. I know it's a little early to tell, but I mean, I don't know. We've debated it too much. I don't feel like the WWE dropped the ball. Now, if AEW can do something better with this, great. It remains to be seen. Time will tell.
It's the Hurt Business thing is super interesting to me because when WWE really started to kick off and really started to catch a lot of fire, Bobby Lashley was champ. Bobby Lashley was towards the top and everything like that. Like there was a point I wanted Bobby Lashley I wanted the Hurt Business versus the Bloodline. Bobby Lashley versus Roman Reigns. Let's do it. But then it kind of just, I know it's because of halfway how they were booked and everything like that. But it just kind of felt old. It had that old man VKM stank on it a little bit and everything. Bobby's always been the best Bobby when he's not in WWE for whatever reason. Like when he was in TNA and even so far when he's in AEW, it's kind of been best Bobby. So I'm not exactly mad at it. I know there's the adage of ex-WWE guys. I don't know if I fully look at it like this. If I'm starting to try and look at it of like when your favorite free agent or a free agent that you have on your team or whatever, whether it's the Leafs, Anthony, I don't know if you have a favorite sports team. I don't think we've discussed this.
I don't.
The Falcons. You live in Atlanta. I'm giving you the Falcons. You're an honorary Falcons fan. Or the Buffalo Bills or anything like that. Like when a free agent from there goes to another team, whatever. Like I had it with one of our safeties, Jordan Poyer went from the Bills to the Dolphins. Same division, same league and everything like that. I don't have no hate for him and everything like that. Go and get your paper, boo-boo. You do you. I like what they're doing with the Hurt Syndicate and AEW, and if they can do more with it and they can make it work, good on them.
Yeah.
I don't know if, and I'm not a big fan of the term drop the ball. I don't know if WWE technically dropped the ball. I feel like it's more of I feel like Bobby to me is better as a singles competitor than he is working with other people. When he was champ, I was personally really behind Bobby Lashley. When the Hurt Business started, I mean, it started off strong, but it kind of just fizzled out. But I wasn't initially a fan of the Hurt Business. I wasn't really into it because I prefer Bobby Lashley alone. But Bobby Lashley, outside of WWE, especially in TNA, was really good, right? I'm more optimistic here. I know I've been calling the group names in the chat every time they come up, but I am a bit optimistic. I do kind of want to see if the Hurt Syndicate works well in AEW and if it's booked well in AEW. But my fear is going to be a rehash of what WWE tried to do. Just think about the Undisputed Era in WWE, and they tried to do it with the Undisputed Elite with all of them back together, and then that kind of went nowhere, right? I don't want a rehash of the Hurt Business in AEW. I want something different, and maybe hopefully they can present that different with Bobby Lashley, Shelton Benjamin, and whoever else they get involved. So I'm optimistic. We'll see.
My biggest fear with this group is just where do they go? Like, okay, you Swerve, great start. This is cool. Keep Swerve busy, former champion. Assuming, let's say they go for a little while, Full Gear comes, Bobby goes over Swerve, and then does it continue? But okay, you finish with Swerve. Then who do they fight? Where do they go from there?
Moxley.
Is it Moxley? But is Moxley going to play that game? We know how this, like, is this going to work? Like, is it going to be the Death Riders versus the Hurt Syndicate?
Yes, he's very much done the American History Mox fucking angle and everything like that. That's kind of the character that they're going with this. And so you have them versus the Hurt Syndicate and all of that. And you have Dean Ambrose versus Bobby Lashley. You're going to have the AW diehards that say it's WWE light and everything like that. I'm sure that tweet's going to get brought in a good bit. But to me, I wonder if, like, the Hurt Business was in a crowded garden in the WWE of, you already had the Bloodline, you already had all these factions, everything. You had everything popping off that they couldn't fully blossom. You're in AEW now. We talked about it, the overrun yard. You got to pull out the fucking old rusty Ford fucking T fucking 250 or whatever the fuck out of the yard and everything like that. So maybe they're the rose bush that blossoms and blooms in this fucking company here a little bit.
That's very deep, my guy.
I know. When a head looks smart.
Yeah, I mean, again, it'd be very interesting to see where it goes. I'm curious. Do I think the WWE dropped the ball? No. Do I think Bobby kind of ran his course? And again, it's the same people that say, well, they don't use so-and-so and they don't use so-and-so. Can't use everybody. Can't do it. You got all this young talent coming. Some of the older guys are going to move on. We are going to see other wrestlers that don't have the same value they once did in WWE end up on AEW TV. We know that's going to happen again. Like, as certain guys age themselves out, the WWE will give them a smaller contract offer. Tony will back up the truck, and we'll just add another former WWE guy to the mix. So, or lady for that matter. But I don't think the Hurt Business has zero value. I think I've heard a good amount of AEW faithful, though, a little concerned. And actually, one of the fans of the channel here, they constantly debate about AEW and their how they do things. But even he kind of swung around recently and was like, everywhere I look, it's WWE guys. What the fuck are we doing? Like, I love this company, and it feels like everything I stopped watching just followed me here.
That's been the big issue and the big worry, I feel. And we've talked about this, and it's been an issue or a threat, an idea and everything on multiple fronts, I feel, when it comes to AEW, of when does it become too much of just WWE light? And then, you know, does that run off the resounding fan base because you went so hard in the paint for the hardcores, you ran off the casuals, and now to try and draw back in the casuals, you run off your base because, you know, you turn into you've turned into what the alternative you were running from.
No, I agree. I think you know, when AEW really started, you had your Darbys and you had your Sammy Guevaras, and you had these people that you really and for me that I had really never heard of before, right? Brand new crop of wrestlers, brand new breed of wrestlers. maybe I can find someone that I could really, connect with and like, and, follow their career path in AEW, right? And then over the course of 2.5 years, now you got Bobby Lashley that I've seen on WWE TV. You got Shelton Benjamin that I've seen on WWE TV. And I know these people have to work. Wrestling is their life, just like we have our day-to-day jobs. But at some point, when do we like focus on our younger talent? When do we focus on the no names where we can build them up to have a name? And I think that's where AEW is kind of lacking it.
Yeah, the homegrown talent, the independent talent that they gave life to, that they gave an opportunity to. I think there's been and I said it earlier, like Osprey, I think should have been put on a pedestal when he came in, and all this meddling with Don Callis, I don't think is maximizing his value. We've seen others come into the company that didn't necessarily go, like a Jay White. Jay White fluttered and floundered. We might be getting a little bit better of Jay White now with Adam Page. Adam Page is another guy. Like, there is homegrown talent within that building that isn't Pockets and Sammy Guevara and Danny Garcia just because, Tony hangs out with them again and he thinks they're cool, that you could be booking. Now we're talking about the Outrunners. Look at these guys. How long are you going to wait? Are you going to burn them out before giving them an opportunity? I don't know. Like, this is your chance to use this talent, but a lot of your TV time, we saw it last night. Cole, Malachi Black, Jericho, back to back. Like,
better homegrown talent for AEW. Hangman Adam Page or MJF?
MJF.
Valid question.
I was about to say
MJF.
Yeah, I was just about to say MJF too. I love Adam Page. I think he's phenomenal and I like what he's doing now. But MJF really took it to the next level about a year and a half ago. But it's just not the same now. But I think I'll always give the slight edge to MJF.
Yeah, I think overall, just from being able to connect with the fans and be a bigger name, be a bigger star. I mean, some people hated the stuff he did with Jericho. I thought he looked great through it. I just wish he didn't do it for a year. But overall, I think MJF's peaks have been much higher. Even when he was fucking around with Cole and they were doing the kangaroos, they were so over. Page is good and been a lot and been one of the more consistent guys. But I think MJF has been the bigger guy overall.
Fair enough. I was just trying to think, like, that's the thing is now it's interesting to really think of who's actual top level, top tier homegrown talent that they have, because Swerve ain't one. Well, do you count Swerve as one? Because I mean, he was with WWE, but by the time he really popped off, he was with AEW. So yeah.
But Nick, Swerve to me is a really great example of, to me, if you booked him proper, Swerve, and I don't mean this disparagingly to Swerve because some people are going to go, well, he's way better than that guy. But Swerve should and could be the Jey Uso of AEW. We've talked about this a lot. Where
he was, and then they fucked it up.
Right? Like, if you dig into what the crowd's reacting to, every time we see Swerve, I don't care if it's 1,900 people in the building or 10,000 people in the building, that entire building should be swerving. Every time. All you had to do was be a pure baby face, dig into the fact that the fans loved it, but it's like they're too grunge for mainstream radio. Like, they're pulling a Pro Jam that we don't want to be played. We're good, thank you. We're good.
And that's why, ladies and gentlemen, I hate Pro Jam. But yes, 100%. No, they had that moment of Swerve was AEW World Champion, and you had Nana out there. Swerve when I drive. Yeah, that was the most played fucking song everywhere and anywhere. Prince Nana built a whole coffee business just off of Swerve when I drive type of shit.
Willow would count. I mean, she feels, and I do, it's not really Triple H's fault. Swerve didn't really get a chance with Trips too much.
Well, I mean, if we're going off the ladies, then would it be Britt or Statlander?
Britt and Statlander both, but Britt, we saw what happened to Britt, and Stat, well, she was a heel, then babyface, then a heel, then a babyface, then a heel, then a babyface. This week,
she showed it.
Like, I think she broke Camille's arm this week. Poor Camille.
Oh. Where's the captain? No Camille.
A couple questions before we tap out. And if you got any last minute questions, throw it our way. And actually, that's to your point about stars, Nick. It's one thing that I said we were going to talk about tonight, but we kind of skipped over it. But I mean, that to your point is OC Moxley your full gear main event? And does that sell tickets? Does that sell pay-per-views on paper? Homegrown guy.
It does not to a casual viewer. If you're flipping through and you haven't watched, like Anthony's friend, I'm sure we have half a dozen friends and everything like that are casual wrestling fans, like ultra casual. You say, hey, John Moxley is taking on Orange Cassidy for the AEW World Championship. Thanks. I got better things to do on a Saturday night. But it's one of those but there's no one there that they could fire off in that situation. Like, to me, I said it on Wednesday. OC and Darby are like two halves of one Sting. With this, Darby should be the one that's up there in the rafters, being spooky and being creepy and being, the vigilant hero, the Dark Knight and everything. But OC's the mascot, the baby face upon baby faces. He's Surfer Sting, Darby's Crow Sting. So there are two halves of a whole Sting. But there's no one that's a viable challenger right now.
Mm-hmm.
Well, who are you going to do? You're going to do Swerve right now? He's tied up with Lashley. You're going to do Hangman? He's tied up with Jay White. Like, there's no one left. The cupboards are bare.
Yeah, I guess that's a good question. I mean, Anthony, I know you're going to jump in there, but if not OC, then who?
I was just about to say that, like, who takes that spot at all gear? I mean, all gear, full gear. Like, I don't know. And I don't think Moxley versus Orange Cassidy is a money maker. Make me want to pay for the pay-per-view type of match. Like, I'm not interested at all. Now, if there was some really good story behind it where you can make it like, okay, I maybe need to really tune into this match, I could get it, but it's given no. Like,
I feel like the match will be bigger and the match will be better than the fucking
the build
marquee and everything.
Yeah. And that's always, I feel like, the case with AEW. Like, the matches deliver, the majority of the time. The storylines just kind of lack behind it. So yeah, I definitely agree there.
Fair enough. One last question, and Anthony, I'll throw this one your way because I know it's come up before. Did TNA screw up by not putting the belt on Joe Hendry when they could have?
I don't think so. After seeing what they produced last week with a really good face-off between Nick Nemeth and Joe Hendry, I think we're building to that grand moment for him. I don't think the TNA fans, and I'm just going to use them as specifically, the TNA fans are still behind Joe Hendry.
Yeah.
Like, when they taped for Detroit, for the Detroit shows after, they were still 100% behind Joe Hendry, right? I think that's going to continue to build, right, for Joe Hendry. I saw, when Cody Rhodes lost to Roman Reigns the first at WrestleMania 39, a lot of the fans said he didn't face adversity trying to get to Roman Reigns, right? And then he kind of did that going towards WrestleMania 40. Now, I don't think it's going to be that year drawn out thing for Joe Hendry because they need a top star. But I think Joe Hendry is going to go through the motions of potentially losing until he finally gets that moment, or just being screwed over multiple times, because he was screwed by JBL at Bound for Glory. So I think that's really going to ignite the fire for Joe Hendry for us to get to him having that moment, which potentially could be, and I was saying Hard to Kill, but they've changed Hard to Kill back to Genesis. At Genesis, the definition of Genesis is beginnings.
Yeah.
If you're going to begin the year on something, you begin the year of Joe Hendry having that TNA World Championship.
Yeah.
You heard it here first, folks. Joe Hendry is Jesus H Wrestling. We're going straight to the Biblics and everything. We're starting off with Genesis into Biblics out here. But no, Joe Hendry has the amazing talent of, he's virally over. He's got all the songs of just he's a meme. He's all of that. He's a Halloween costume, but still can go enough and is still compelling in the ring, on the microphone, etc., etc., etc. That he's not just a flash in the pan. He's, the sizzle and the steak. So if they need to let that go to a nice, medium rare instead of a rare, I'm all fine with that.
Yeah. And I found a lot of the fans that have that kind of 2 cents of like, well, again, he's not trending on Twitter the way he was a few months ago. I get it. But if you truly have watched Joe's career, the guy's a hell of a professional wrestler. And he's doing everything he can to put him the biggest spotlight possible because he has big aspirations. And I think time will tell. Patience has kind of been the theme of like 2024 since WrestleMania. Everything we like, patience, folks. It's going to work out, I think.
Right.
But couple quick questions here before we tap out. Is Billy Corgan and the NWA done? Is AEW next? First question, as far as I know, Billy and NWA are still rolling. Sanheim 2 is coming up or just happened, and we completely missed it.
Well, no, it's so funny that you mentioned that and everything, which, by the way, shout out, we have a Discord, join the Discord, all of that and everything like that. But Small Mark Dustin mentioned that and everything. And I know last Sam Hain was the infamous, Tony Khan spot with Father James Mitchell and all that. So, and that got them allegedly kicked off the CW. That fucked up their whole TV deal. But there was a Sam Hain too that I guess is still waiting to get shown. I couldn't find any results. Allegedly it happened, but I can't find any results, even from all the spoilers from a cage match, not a leak, not a nothing. It's still, I guess, going to air on NWA Power. Like, they've done the fucking time warp again. This is, getting Rocky Horror Picture Show with this shit. But yeah, I haven't been able to find anything with it, but the NWA has just been, that needs to be studied as such a fall from grace and everything. I mean, if you want to go through the annals of time, but from when the NWA was the NWA to now, when it's, despite all my rage, I am still an NWA in a cage. But it's gone from what was going to be AEW, honestly. It was supposed to be primed to be one of the next big contenders of like a TNA and all of that. And now it's gone, you don't hear nothing about that. You don't know when they're on, where they're on, who's there, what's there, anything.
The last I heard of NWA in their weekly shows, and I'm thinking it's the weekly shows, they were airing them on Twitter.
Yeah.
Chat confirmed that, but yeah, I think they were airing them on Twitter.
I know
they're competing with WWE Speed for ratings. That's the new ratings battle, folks. NWA versus WWE Speed.
I know Power used to be on YouTube at like Friday afternoon, I think.
I wonder if we've done a better stream than a fucking NWA Power episode.
Because apparently Sam Hain 2 happened on the 26th, but I digress.
Yeah, and then you can't find nothing. It's a ghost show. It's a ghost ship. Where's Scooby in the gang?
Yeah, I don't get it. But Billy Corgan was another example of he had the right intentions, said all the right things. In the beginning, it looked really well. I was a big advocate for NWA. If you didn't see their weekly shows, their pay-per-views banged. There's a lot of stars we couldn't see. I don't know if it was like the onset of like GCW blew up and AEW blew up and became a thing, that it just kind of watered down their product. Because next thing we got, the Gimp running around and James Mitchell doing stupid shit. Tyrus was champion for way too long. I think at the end of the day, it's just it's a shell of what it used to be, guys. AEW is not going anywhere anytime soon.
No. And I still every now and then, I as much as I know other people on the internet, go back and watch us talking about the Tyrus when he's NWA champion and still the greatest joke. Oh, I can do better than him, and I'm in a wheelchair.
Right.
Go.
No,
I was gonna just ask: is Billy Corgan just bald Tony Khan? Because it's a little one of the same-ish of like, I have no business involved in wrestling, but I want to be in wrestling. Like Billy Corgan's at least talented, Smashing Pumpkins Tony Khan's famous for wearing a neck brace. But yeah.
Billy may have earned his money, but yeah, I think the same idea that all the best intentions that just so you got to understand, like when you come into a business, you should rely on some other people. And I'm not saying that Billy never did it, but somewhere along the lines he lost the plot.
Mm-hmm.
So the three bread it says, but I think it's supposed to say beer to tears, which I kind of like. Your thoughts on this Cage Hook storyline? Do you love or hate it? I think it's fucking horrible.
I want crazy bread from Little Caesars right now because we were talking about bread of tears and everything. But I don't know what to make at this point anymore with the patriarchy storyline. Like, who cashes in first, Christian or Tiffany Stratton?
Christian's going to cash in on Jericho at this point. He's not cashing in.
It could be for any title,
right? He's not cashing in on Moxley.
I know what'll settle you kids down. You need a dad. You need a father figure. You're out here just running roughshod. You need someone to fucking put your ass in line.
Yeah, the storyline, it kicked off terribly. Hook is not a good actor. Hook gives this the same facial expressions of Ronda Rousey, and I'm gonna beat that to the ground. That he gives the same facial expressions of Ronda Rousey. He is a talented in-ring performer, right? I feel like he's a decent wrestler, but he's not a good actor. And this to me is gonna go nowhere.
No, and I mean, all I got to tell people is Kip Sabian has been the new guy in the group. Like that tells you enough of where this storyline is kind of disintegrated. I understand Luchasaurus had to step away and T's and P's. I hope he's doing better. But I mean, Kip was not the answer. And like imagine, you know, having this whole scenario where Christian wants to challenge for the title, but Kip steals his pen. His pen is what stopped him from cashing in. Like, it's silly. On top of that, I mean, Christian talked about it last night that, you know, his dad works for the same company. His dad's there. He doesn't need a dad. He's got a dad. Christian's offering him a better dad. I thought the story should have been Hook beat up his dad just because. Fuck it. But apparently not.
I fucking hate you, Dad. You never let me play fucking Sega. I couldn't have no fucking pizza bites. No, none of that. No. To me, they stepped on their pen is beyond just with involving Kip Sabian. All of this of the story should be Nick Wayne versus Hook. There's your fucking. If you want to build up Ring of Honor and everything, you want to build up a young, fast division. Holy shit, it's staring you in the fucking eye. And somehow you end up like passing the pirate blind out of this shit. Of Nick Wayne versus Hook is the best way to go with this. Fuck Christian. Christian should be focused on a world title, on a main title, and everything.
Yeah.
No, I agree with that. And I mean, again, it doesn't. It's silly, and I think that's where, like, I mean, I hate doing this comparison, but it feels very kiddie. There's way too many moms and dads.
I hate personally. Sorry to cut you off, but I hate the fact that we can just watch the show and can figure this shit out way easier and way quicker and way faster and way better than the people who get paid millions for billions, cajillions of dollars to fucking do this shit when the shit's staring them right in the face.
Will War Games be 4-on-4 or the traditional 5-on-5? If 5-on-5, who will the two teams? I think it's going to be 4-on-4. I can't imagine, like, does Roman bring in Hikuleo and Lance goes to, like, are we having the Samoan draft?
We have a supplemental Samoan draft.
Right.
With the second pick in the third round, the Bloodline OG takes Zilla Fatu.
Yeah. Juicy Fatu is up on the board, folks.
Right. Well, then write him off the list.
Right. Yeah, I think it's going to be 4-on-4. It would be really surprising if they add in anything else beyond that. Do you guys? I mean, again, we've speculated earlier tonight, so.
Well,
I think it's going to be 4-on-4.
One War Games match or 2 War Games match? Do you see a potential actual Survivor Series match happening? Or is it just has Survivor Series becomes just War Games?
I would, if I was booking this year's Survivor Series, I would have the one War Games match with the Bloodline versus the Bloodline 2.0. And I would go ahead this year and do the traditional 5-on-5 Survivor Series match for the women, because there's no need for War Games for the women.
No.
In any universe, and I love women's wrestling, but there hasn't been a story where there was two teams going at it for months, and you just can't. I feel like a War Games match is not something you just throw together.
Didn't we just watch that match though on NXT? That's the thing, is I feel like we kind of just watched. If you're gonna do a 5-on-5 women's match and everything, as far as War Games, I feel like right, but who else are you gonna throw in there that we didn't just see have the same match on NXT?
Well, I mean, again, if you're going to do something in Survivor Series, you would use some of the main roster talent, like we've seen a lot with the tag teams. Maybe there's a caveat where you have a champion in there somehow. But I agree with Anthony. There's no storyline that sufficiently justifies a second War Games. I don't see that happening. Maybe a potential an American Made with somebody against fucking a group of baby faces. That's a possibility. As a traditional, I love the traditional Survivor Series match. I'd be okay with it.
Yeah.
Wyatt Six versus the Final Testament.
Before we move on real quick, I do want to point this out, Big Dog. Rhea's actually injured.
Yeah.
We don't know if it's storyline. We don't know if it's an actual injury, but right now Rhea is out of action. So telling Rhea that there won't be a War Games match, I feel like will be very easy if she's legitimately injured.
Well, hands up, do you think that she's actually injured or that it's storyline?
I don't know.
I'm fully
kind of blurred the lines right now, so I don't really know. And she could be legitimately injured if we're moving on to Io Sky. So I don't know.
To me, that's a way of you kick the can down the street and everything like that. The fact that she's out indefinitely and my guy. Rick Hamilton can come back after 6 weeks or whatever. You can still have Phantom of the Opera, Undertaker, and everything, but she's out indefinitely, and we don't even know how, if, when, or where she had it and everything.
Well, we do know that where the spot seemed to have happened on the show,
allegedly.
But I don't imagine that they would pull her out of the storyline the way they did. Like, it's so abrupt, and now we moved on to Io. I kind of feel like
abrupt. She got mugged. She got fucking. It was batting practice in a car.
Yeah. I think
to me it's storyline. You kick the can down the road. You get the Live Revenge tours over now and everything. So now she can go and she goes on and you forget about it. So then when she shows up, it's not the same, I guess, a little bit.
Yeah, I don't think they're gonna. I honestly, I don't see the purpose of kicking the can down the road before you got to the conclusion of where they were heading. It felt like they were in the middle of something.
And if I guess it's kind of weird, because if you're gonna kick Rhea to the side for a minute, why do it on a random episode of NXT? This is the main roster storyline.
Because you get Liv and Raquel over as the tag team and everything. That's why they're about to challenge for the tag team titles and everything.
But you could do that. You could do that on the main roster, though. You could technically have that same segment on a Raw or a SmackDown.
Yeah,
but we got 2 hours instead of 3, so fuck it. I got time on NXT, so
yeah. I just
Rhea showed up on the NXT and she's out there taking pictures and everything like that. So I mean,
I think that's I don't see them having a reason to kick. They were in the middle of something, so it feels like a hard pivot. I'd be really surprised if it's fully storyline, and I don't know. We'll see. We'll find out. I think we're gonna get Phantom of the Rhea at some point. I kind of made that joke, so we'll see. But I just don't. You generally don't in the middle of the story go to be continued. Like it felt so abrupt. But maybe I'm wrong.
Fair enough.
Who's the most popular wrestler in AEW? Merchant on TV. I don't know who's leading the merch sales right now, but I know that is Ospreay the number one guy in the company? Popularity wise?
Well, MJF would almost be considered, I feel, a little bit. I mean, Ospreay probably should be, could be, probably is. As far as merch, I mean, I think, people who are selling knockoff AEW merch are doing better than people who sell actual AEW merch, because it actually looks more legit than AEW merch. Their merch is trash, by the way. Go and get our merch, by the way. But yes, AEW's merch is just hot garbage.
Mm-hmm. Just not for months, probably a few weeks. Yeah, I would agree with that. I think we're going to get Phantom of the Ripley. Anyone else got a vote on that one?
I made my point. I think that it's Angle more than anything.
How do you feel about Hayter and Ford going 4 minutes? It's incredibly disappointing. I mean, we already talked about this tonight. I mean, Hayter is in the same boat as Deonna and Taya and a bunch of them. That, you know, Hayter was your former champion. She gets hurt. She finally comes back. You bring her back on a pre-show, and she's been nowhere near any belts. She hasn't even thought to come out and say, "Hi, everybody. I used to be the champ. Can I have my belt back?" No, that hasn't crossed her mind, not once. And then you give them 4 minutes for two women that could really wrestle. Woo!
It's where the best wrestle. So
no, she's out here playing Donna Pinciotti out here looking for her Eric Foreman and everything. Like, she's straight up that 70s show. AEW's women's division it's a crumbled empire, I feel like, at this point. Of you invested so much money into Mercedes, and Britt's attitude has just gone fucking haywire. That division's collapsing on itself. That division was arguably at one point the best division in wrestling. Now it's run away with NXT. We saw 10 women have a match on the main event of NXT, and valid that it was the main event, and not a moment was missed with it.
Yeah, no, for sure. What happened to the bunny? She quit. She left. She gone. She bye.
She hippity hoppity down the bunny trail.
Right. But with all that being said, I will remind everybody we are back tomorrow. This was a fun one as always, and we always appreciate the chat during our live stream. So make sure you're there. Are you surprised the bunny hasn't popped up yet? I thought she'd go back to TNA, Anthony.
yeah, I thought she would too, but I know she's been doing some indie shows. There's a mutual follower of mine on TikTok that's a huge fan of the bunny, and she saw her recently in Canada. She was at some type of show there, so she is doing some indie shows. But maybe she just doesn't want to wrestle in the bigger companies right now. She just want to take the indie route. I don't know.
The most I've seen with her, honestly, is like her and Allison Kay, who I'm actually a fan of, and everything. They kind of have their own little podcast together about like horror movies and all that. So yeah, I think she might be just kind of more past or kind of done with the wrestling gig.
For sure. And she does work with the school as well in Buffalo. So she does some work, and she'll keep busy. But ladies and gentlemen, we are going to say goodnight for now. This was the Dirt Sheet Debate. Lots of fun as always. There's always more stuff for us to get into each and every week. Next week, the Wing Show is coming back, I do believe. So we are going round 2 of the Wings, the Wing of the Ring. But before then, Sunday, we will be here for members only. If you're not a member yet, join the membership. It's always a fun stream where the three of us just shoot the breeze. We kind of take a step away from wrestling a little bit. Sometimes we don't. But it's going to be a good one, and we love bringing you the members only stuff. So become a member. Be there for that. Tomorrow, Friday, we got SmackDown Rampage. What will happen with the Bloodline? Will Sammy and Roman get back together? Could we get a Heyman? We'll find out all of it. And of course, Anthony's review of TNA. I think we're going to be here Saturday night as well for something. But stay tuned for all of that. Click the little bell. And then, of course, we're here all week long. We got tons of pay-per-views and stuff coming on. Anthony, any final thoughts?
Yeah, you put it away.
TNA review coming out Saturday, I believe. Yep, we'll be talking about some big matches. I already know like the winner of one match, and I'm kind of upset about the winner, but I'm gonna talk all about that on Saturday. So be here for the TNA review on Saturday.
Right. Well, Mr. Big Nick.
Our shit is real, our shit is raw, our shit is all authentic. What are you talking about? That rest of you, but put that full live with it.
Come back tomorrow. We got more. See you on the flip side. Good night.